it is here, and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another short story in the Clockwork Chronicles after the books. After the books were published, beyond the books, as I like to call them. Those are technically after the books. Yeah, basically I've already done one of them. I'm going to do the next one, which is, as you can tell from the title, something to do with two characters. Of course, while writing the books, I had to scrap some characters, and a thought did cross my mind that one of the characters was going to be a robot. You might know who he is. Yeah, I just felt bad not having him in there, so I just gave him a short story. It's kind of fun. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, just a little fun I had. Still works. And let's get right into it. If you have any questions, thoughts, or any other ideas, let me know. Yeah, let's get right into it. I've already said that. I am repeating myself. You know, I should probably just do it. Beauty and the Bot. I used the same introduction. Months had passed since the events of the last book, book 4. And even though a lot happened within that time, all of it took place in another world, in another place, completely. But most importantly, it didn't truly concern anyone in the events of the story. On one lovely mid-morning, Stacy could be found tending to her animals near her home. A small cabin in the heart of the woods, only a few miles from the school that taught and protected their students from the chaos and horrors of Mr. A's men brought on many, just because they were or had been associated with YouTubers. Yep. Stacy was glad there was a place for the children to stay and be safe, because they were just as precious as the animals she helped here in the woods. It was a wolf pack. But this was no ordinary day. She didn't know how she knew, but she knew. It was as if there was something special about it. She wasn't going on a rescue expedition again for a few weeks, but she was going to be seeing a friend she hadn't seen in a few years. Only because she didn't want any of those men to know about it. Know about him. She knew she could trust some people from the cause, but sometimes secrets were better at protecting someone you knew. No. After all, her friend had no idea about all this, but it was about time that she should. It would ensure that everyone was on the same page. But as she finished tending the last of the animals, she felt a pang of nervousness hit her as she looked around the quiet clearing that she called home. Nothing was out of place. The animals were safe and happy, some of them even ready to go back out into the wild where they had belonged. She took a deep breath and turned to one of her wolves, who was standing by her side protectively. She didn't really blame him, especially after what happened years ago. Being separated from her wolves, not knowing if she'd ever get out of those men's grasp was terrifying, but she was safe now. No one was attempting to get to her, or any of her friends, at least. She hoped not. Do you think it's a good idea to do this, Everest? She asked honestly to the wolf. Everest looked up at her. For a long moment, she let out a sigh. Yeah, I know. It has to happen. I already told someone what I was going to be doing today, but still, I hate having something going wrong. Everest let out a deep but reassuring growl that seemed to ease her uncertainty. He was right. Wolves had managed to keep her safe this far. They wouldn't let anything happen to her, and the man had almost been afraid of them. Maybe that was why they hadn't struck back in a while. Wolves weren't just any ordinary wolves. As we all know. Come on, I'm going to need all of you, to come with me, then, she said with authority, happy to see the rest of her back appearing as soon as she finished the last sentence. She wasn't going alone. Sure. But this was something she needed to do. She didn't know if she could forgive herself if anything bad happened. But just, she began walking towards the clearing, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Hey, wait up for me, Stacy. She turned to see, to her surprise, in amusement, a robot coming towards her. He was made of dark gray metal, with golden rings on some of the joints. His red eyes seemed to glow with excitement as he went up to her. I didn't expect you to come here, Grazer, she said matter-of-factly. I thought I'd come to surprise you, Grazer said with a smile. You do know where the place is better than I do. Right, she nodded, gesturing to him to follow. As they went towards the woods, feeling a jumbled pile of emotions. Do you really have to bring all your wolves with you, though? Grazer asked. Oops. With uncertainty. Yes, I do, she said simply. Just in case something happens. What do you mean? We're the only ones here, Grazer said with a laugh. She shook her head and managed to smile. That's why I said it was just in case. I'll explain once we get there. Okay. The robot said slowly, seeming to feel a little nervous about her words. She didn't blame him. Normally, they would joke about stuff like this, but she knew better. There was always a chance that the men could be watching, waiting, lurking in the shadows, preparing for a precise moment to attack. She swallowed as she pushed back those thoughts. Mind, nothing had happened for years. The only Trill attack had been a surprise. She hadn't been ready for it, and neither had her wolves, but this time they were. Those men wouldn't get to them. Why did she feel so anxious? Still feel so anxious? They continued walking as she listened to Grazer talk about everything that he had been doing recently. The friends he'd made, the adventures he had gone on, and the things he had discovered. She was only half listening, though, too alert to truly concentrate on what her friends were saying. Suddenly, she heard one of her wolves let out a low warning growl, just as it came to the place where they were going, which stopped her in her tracks. She had heard something in the woods. Something she knew wasn't now. Stacy? Is everything all right? Grazer asked, noticing her stop, spotting the uneasiness in her expression. No one followed you here, right? She asked calmly, even though her heart was still racing inside. What do you mean? Oh, of course no one followed me, Grazer said, in his cheerful voice, but it didn't help her uneasiness. Are you absolutely sure? She asked. These are pretty dense woods in parts. Someone could easily slip through without being noticed. How did you know about this? Grazer asked. It's complicated. She let out a sigh and shook her head as she noticed her wolves growing tense. Something was definitely up. She knew that they weren't safe here. Tell me, I want to know, Grazer exclaimed. His concern was apparent. Something was up. She swallowed and took a deep breath, ready to tell him there was no time right now. That they needed to get out of here, to get somewhere safe, to find help, but before she could do that, she heard footsteps coming from behind them. She whirled around to find a tall man in a familiar black uniform. His dark gray eyes glinted as he spotted them. A cold smile on his face. So kind of you to wait for me, Stacy, the man said with a smooth tone. A shiver went up and down her spine when the man had called her by her name. We were just leaving, she said, trying to keep calm, even though her voice was shaking slightly. She hadn't heard the man mention anyone else with him. That didn't mean there wasn't more in the shadows. Besides, the wolves probably could smell them all. This wasn't good. I'm afraid the both of you aren't going anywhere, the man said with a sneer. Both? I don't know why I keep saying both. It's almost like boof. Boof snoof. Yep. Not when you made it far easier to get to you. What are you talking about? Grazer asked, surprise and anger in his voice. How does he know you? I told you, it's complicated, she replied simply. This man works for someone called Mr. A, who wants to destroy all the YouTubers. But why? Grazer asked. What did we ever do to him? That's none of your concern, YouTuber. The man sneered again, stepping closer, only to get a warning growl from one of the wolves. And unfortunately for your friend, there isn't time to explain. Stacy tensed as she noticed movement on the edges of the clearing. As more men stepped out, they were surrounded, horribly outnumbered. How were they going to get out of this? She knew that they could probably outrun most of them, but not all of them. But they had to do something. She looked over to her wolves, who seemed ready to attack at any moment. She just tried to take Grazer and run. She knew the wolves would be fine, but you have 3 seconds to surrender, YouTuber, the men warned. Call off your wolves, come with us. No one will be hurt. My wolves wouldn't listen to me, she replied simply. Would they attack you if you were in danger of being hurt? The man asked, raising eyebrows. They can't protect you forever, Stacy. They're wild animals, after all. They can be quite careless. We won't let you get to us, the Grazer said matter-of-factly, standing in front of her, pushing her back. She was surprised, but it only made the man laugh. Is that a challenge? The man said with a cold grin. You all are horribly outnumbered. We're not afraid to do whatever it takes to do what our leader wants, and he will get what he wants. He always does in the end. Suddenly, an arrow whizzed right over her head. Stacy cried out in alarm, ducking as another flew over her. Grazer turned to shield her as the wolves lunged to attack. She barely knew what was going on. She was pulled away into the woods. Come on, we need to get out of here, Grazer said as she quickly snapped out of her daze and pulled away from him. How did you do that? She asked, surprised. Pulled out a few stray arrows stuck in the middle. He smiled. I'm indestructible. That's how. She managed to chuckle before growing serious. I know where we can go, but it's going to be a long one. Okay, Grazer nodded. I'm sure we can make it back to your house. She shook her head. They'll be expecting that. We need to go somewhere where I know we can be safe. You have to trust me, though. I do trust you, Grazer said with a nod. She looked over her shoulder, hearing footsteps coming in her direction. As she grabbed her friend's arm as they began to run, she didn't dare look back, too scared to see if the men were still pursuing them. The trees blurred around them as she ran. She tried not to think about what was going on behind her, whether or not her wolves were okay, whether the men were gaining on them, whether they had any chance of escape. They managed to make most of the way there without issue, Stacy stumbling as they went along. She wasn't sure how long she could hold on, especially when she could hear that footsteps behind them steadily getting closer. We're almost there, Grazer told her, more to reassure her, even though he had no idea whether or not they were actually almost there. How close are they? She gasped, not surprised that he was able to run without getting tired for so long. He's a robot after all. She was glad he was there. Getting closer, Grazer said with a frown as he looked over his shoulder. But you look like you're going to faint. I'll be fine, she said, feeling slightly dizzy as she coughed. She heard another arrow whiz over their heads. She gasped in surprise. They didn't hurry. They could be captured. No one would even know. She had to keep going. She couldn't give up this soon. They were so close. She could see the trees starting to thin through her blurry vision as tears stung in her eyes. Her legs felt like they were going to fall off. She stumbled even more. She wasn't sure if she could keep going any further, but she had to try. Help! She cried loudly, coughing as she tripped over a root and fell to the grassy ground. She shook her head as she heard the footsteps getting louder. She felt arms wrap around her and lift her off the ground. I got you, Grazer's voice said as she blinked rapidly, looking up as she tried to still a racing heart. It's just on the other side The clearing, she said, feeling even more dizzy as the robot began to run, even faster than she could have ever imagined, leaving the men far behind as he did so. In no time at all, they had gone through the clearing before he slowed in front of a familiar building she knew well. I'm assuming this is it? Grazer asked as he let her go, helping her stand as she nodded. We're here, she sighed as she shook her head. You do look exhausted, Grazer said with concern. I'll be okay, she said with a small smile. You really surprised me today. Hey, that's what friends are for, Grazer said with a smile. Now come on, we need to get you to a place to rest. We'll be safe here until we get this situation figured out. I know, she said with a sigh as they headed toward the door that led to the hospital wing, where she knew she would find either Liam or Lizzie waiting for them. They'd probably get a big surprise, but they would probably be glad to know that they were both safe. There's more than she could ask for. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end that there. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. And stay tuned for the next story whenever that comes out. Bye.